everyone, and thanks again for being here. I am Terry McMacken, a local resident, and for the past few election cycles, I've been hosting conversations with candidates, and the goal is really simple, and it's to give people a chance to get to know the person behind the campaign. This isn't a debate or a gotcha interview, it's a conversation, and by the end of the video, my hope is that you'll have a better sense of who this candidate is, their background, their priorities, and how they approach leadership. The spirit of this conversation is one of curiosity and intentionality, because we really want to dig into the nuance and the context of why someone would choose to put their name on a ballot and what they hope to accomplish. I've prepared some questions for the candidate in advance. They have received them, but we're going to follow the flow of the conversation, and every candidate has received the invite. If you have any questions at all after the interview, I would encourage you to reach out to the candidate directly. So, with that said, thanks again for being here and let's get it started. And I want to say a very special hello to Andy, who I have not met in person. So, this is actually our real first conversation, and I'm really excited to see where that goes. But I think, as much for me as for the audience, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself, what your connection is to your community. Why are you running?
You're going to hear my grandfather clock in the background here. I don't know if you hear that.
I
Sorry,
don't hear it, but you're probably going to hear my cat, so we're even.
my dogs might go crazy too. My
That's
wife
okay.
and I, we're in the military. We served for 35 years in uniform and several years in the Department of National Defense as civilians, as public servants. And then, when we were looking around for places to live, we were living in Ottawa at the time, and we just thought it was during COVID. We just like a lot of other people from Ontario, we thought we want to move to someplace quieter and more peaceful. So it was pretty easy choice for us. I grew up in Salisbury, but I spent as much time as I could in Elgin. We had a camp here, and my grandparents lived here, and my cousins lived here. And I mean, there's the Mill Pond and all the river and motocross racing and things up here that we used to do when we were kids. So we bought some property here in Elgin and built a house, and we settled in into our mountain hideaway for some peace and quiet.
I love that. I feel like even though I didn't come from Ontario, I kind of made the same move from Moncton, right?
Uh,
Like from the city. And I'm like, I just want a little peace and quiet and get to know my neighbors. And so I can totally relate to, that feeling. But for you, it's like coming back, right? Like you had roots in this general area before. That's really cool. At what point did you say, like, I want to serve this community in a different way? Like, clearly you've already served, which is really awesome, and I'd love to know more about that. But like, what made you make that step to let's do local government?
well, I guess I didn't even think about it, frankly, until actually Angela, who is the current counselor for Ward 3, Angela Silverthorne, she asked me to do it, and I hadn't even thought about it. I thought Angela would run again, and I was happy with that because I thought the council had some good momentum for the first council after municipal reform. So when she asked me, I thought, geez, do I want to do that? And I had already kind of started shifting to more local issues because I loved following the news around the world and everything, but it becomes a bit much. So I kind of changed my focus. I narrowed it down to more local issues. I uh, I joined the volunteer fire department when I moved here. I helped run the community center here in town. I kind of took over the Remembrance Day type of activities here in Elgin. And I just, helping out with the rink and things like that. It made me feel a little more relaxed to be focusing on a little bit smaller, more local issues. So when I started looking at the council, when I was asked, I went to a council meeting just for a vibe check, and I realized that I could work with those folks. And I liked the format. It was very familiar with some of the other committees and boards that I've been on in the past. And but then when I started looking into into other governments, and honestly, I hadn't even thought about municipal reform until I started doing my research. But the more I read into it, and the more I looked at how other communities were had responded over the last 3 years to it, I realized there was still, despite excellent work by the first council, there's still lots of room for improvement. And I felt like I could contribute to that. Um, I have a couple of main issues that came up basically through discussions with local residents and just through my research. And things like rural service equity popped up pretty quickly as my kind of top platform item. I was looking into doing a deep dive on tax rates and trying to understand how all that works, and getting it confused at first, but finally, sorting it out and realizing what a mess taxation has been before municipal reform, and how it's still not perfect at this point. But then all these things kind of come back to rural service equity. Another issue was communications. So I'd seen other municipalities had a great online presence. Salisbury comes to mind as one of the communities that's done a great job letting the residents know what's going on in the community. Things like analysis of the budget, and little news art. They look like news articles about meetings and issues. I just thought that was a great idea and something that I wanted to bring to our local municipal government. And I've noticed from talking to people that it's an issue. People don't really understand. Some people don't even know which municipality they're in. And Ward 3 is a big ward. It's very rural. It's made up of a lot of small communities that might not even have a real presence. You might not even see them named on the map, but they're old communities spread out over a big area. So the other issue, of course, that ties in with the service equity and the communication is the tax fairness. So, like I said, one of the first things I did, I kind of have a financial background. I was a logistics officer in the military, so we were trained in finance and managed a lot of big budgets over the years. So I went and did a deep dive on our budget and just to learn how it works. And again, at first I was kind of I had an impression that the taxes weren't fair. The more I read into it, the more comfortable I was with the way the taxes are set up. I think there's still room for improvement there as well. But all the research that I did and going to the meeting and talking to some other people in the community just made me realize that it was something I could do. Plus, I'm retired, and after having finished building the house, I kind of need a little more intellectual stimulation, I guess.
First off, shout out to Angela. She is phenomenal. I too was also disappointed when I found out she wasn't reoffering. She taught both my boys kindergarten,
Yes,
and I was a volunteer in her classroom too. So I kind of got to see her in action, and I love she's very much like a no-nonsense kind of woman, do what's got to get done. And yeah, props to her. I'm very happy that, she's moving on to whatever, makes her happy. Sad to see her go, but I'm
she's
happy that she tapped you on
the
the shoulder.
she's the president of the Elgin Eco Association too, which I'm going to give a shout out for the Elgin Eco Association.
Well, you had mentioned too municipal reform, right? Because Elgin was not like they didn't have a local voice.
Uh,
They had their MLA was kind of like their next touch point. And of course, a lot of people in Elgin do go to Petitcodiac for services, for school, or what have you. That is kind of the center. But even as somebody who kind of came from the outside, I always saw Elgin as like its own like they had like their own unofficial council, right? Like they had leaders in their community that just knew how to step up and just how to do things and the amazing things that Elgin could do without, like being a municipality. It still blows my mind today.
yeah, no, it's a great community, and all the little communities around here are great. My wife and I went out to Parkendale. Was it last weekend or the weekend before? There was an organized uh, cemetery cleanup. And I thought, well, that'd be a good way to meet some folks out in Parkendale. So we showed up with our rakes and our rubber boots on, and there was 30 people there. You know, they were all pitching in. I thought it would take hours to do, but there was 30 folks there, and we all worked together and chit chatted. And I think everybody knew each other except for me. Myself and my wife, Mary Ann, were the strangers there, but they were so friendly. And all these little communities have leaders. So, you know, I'll give a shout out to Jillian Steves, who kind of led that effort out there. And I kind of got the sense that Jillian's a good leader, you know, in the Parkendale area. And there's leaders out in all the little communities around here. And that's one of my goals is to see who's leading in the smaller communities.
And there was a couple of things you said too that I feel like really lead into other questions, and one being like leaders, right? There's tons of leaders in the community, but not all of them are putting their name on a ballot, right? Like whether it's a capacity they don't feel like they're prepared to serve or for whatever reason, but the role of, a municipal councilor, like what do you feel is the most important part of that role? Like maybe what you bring specifically to that role that all of these other leaders are either deciding, no, not for me, or maybe they don't feel as prepared for.
Well, some of the folks I talked to before I finally decided to run, some people who lived here like their whole lives, and I thought they would be good counselors. And I kind of suggested to a few people, like, you know, you should run because people don't even know who I am, maybe, but they'll know who you are. And a lot of people have such busy lives. You know, you probably can understand this. You're a mother with. I heard you had a couple of goalies, so that must be busy.
I'm half
And
crazy, but yes.
work. So you know, you always see these kind of gray-haired people joining these kind of governments, and it's because we have time, and we also have a lot of experience. And you know, municipal government has a kind of a limited amount of power, but it's not powerless. So we don't control healthcare, you know, some of the big items that are controlled provincially and federally, or even highways out here. All my roads in Ward 3 are provincially maintained. But we do have an opportunity to advocate at those levels and make relationships, which I've already started doing um, within our regional service district and with the MLAs, my MLA for this area, and with other MLAs in southern New Brunswick, just to build those relationships and see if we can move the yardstick a little further on some of the issues that really affect people at the coal face. I mean, roads are going to come up a lot. They've come up a lot in my meetings with people, and I can't promise really anything on roads in the rural area, except that I will fight for what I call the rural service equity to get our roads up to standard. We have roads that are a lot of dirt roads still, you know, out in the country, and these roads are a mess this time of year. So I'm getting a bit of an earful on that, which is great. And I've asked people to do that just to ping off me. I have a Facebook page where I share a lot of my thoughts and trying to get a two-way communication going with residents. So I'm getting some good inputs. I'm getting inputs on issues I had never even considered were issues, but things like private roads. I had never really thought about a private road and the impact that has on service delivery until I had one of the residents not complain, but observe that he had to bring his waste, his garbage out to the main road, and he couldn't put it at the end of his driveway. And I thought, well, that doesn't make any sense. And then the more I read into it, I realized that it was a liability issue, and that the contracted waste removal companies are not allowed to use those roads. But it's just an issue that I'd never thought of, and I wouldn't have thought of had somebody not come forward and given me that idea to look into.
I feel like you're touching on so many interesting things. I'm like jotting down notes so I can remember to ask you these questions, but I really appreciate how honest you are in that, the role as a counselor, you're limited, but you're not powerless,
Yeah.
right? Like, and I tell the story all the time of when I was campaigning and someone was nagging me about what I'm going to do to change healthcare in the province. And
Exactly.
then part of the job is kind of educating people without dismissing them, right? Like saying, no, these are provincial roads. Like I actually have no jurisdiction, but I do have the connections to the people who do. And
Right.
I'm opening up that door and having that conversation because when someone's coming to you with an issue that's really affecting their lives, like the last thing they want to hear is, oh, you're talking to the wrong person, go to this person. Like you kind
Yeah.
of want to be that person that they feel comfortable giving that information to, right?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I want to do. Um, I mean, a big part of what I see as the role of a counselor is to help residents understand who is responsible for what. I mean, I've posted a couple versions of Know Your Government info packs on my Facebook page, and it helps me too, to understand. Sometimes I forget and step into it a little bit, but right now the confusion over who does what is leads to a bit of frustration. I would say a level of frustration. I guess I was going to just say, I've learned a lot of issues by talking to people and getting that information. So the two-way part of it is very important. So I like to put out info packs on when I get a question, I'll research it. I'll learn as much as I can about it for both my own future use, but then I want to share it with folks in the community so there's less confusion about it.
I feel like there's a certain responsibility for anyone who's a leader in their community, whether they're an elected leader, whether they're just a volunteer that, does cool things, to really help educate people on the issues, right? Because we live in the age of rage, as a lot of people would like to say, and I'm very big on, ask before you accuse.
Yeah,
Chances are you're looking at something and it's super frustrating that it's not black and white. Like I do believe people in general are trying to make the best decisions with the information that they have, but if the information they have is not good information or is intentionally presented to them in a way to get them so angry that, logic just goes out the window, like this is causing more issues than, than really need be. So as a leader in the community, and I guess this kind of leads into one of the questions I had sent, like how are you going to be dealing with that? Like somebody's coming at you, they're mad at something, what they're mad at is completely based off misinformation or misrepresenting the facts. How are you going to diffuse that situation? How are you going to help that person while not invalidating, what they're feeling?
so this is another reason that some of the folks I approached and encouraged to run for council didn't want to run for council because of the blowback that you can get, and some of it's kind of I haven't received any nasty things yet, but it's inevitable that people are going to be upset and passionate about these issues, that especially at the municipal level, because it's really close. The things that we do are very hit close to home for these people. So I've had a couple people, like for instance, that waste management issue. I think I went offline and private messaged the person just to better understand the situation. Then we kept a little dialogue going, and I did my research and learned about the liability, and I got back to him privately. Just, I think if somebody's upset, venting on Facebook is totally fine. I don't mind that. If somebody wants to come up and their voice is a little loud, which happened to me a couple days ago, that's fine. I don't take that personally. It's just a level of frustration. Totally understand. Um, the person who was upset with me a couple days ago had heard a rumor, about tax rates being equalized across all the wards in Three Rivers, and I said, "Well, that's a rumor. There's no basis in that at all, and I don't think there's any plans to do any such thing, and it wouldn't be logical." So I think once you take the time and calmly explain things to folks, then I think everything calms down and becomes more based on logic.
In the wise words of Leslie Knope, character from Parks and Rec, if you've never watched the show, it's one of my favorite shows. When people are yelling at me, I just hear them caring loudly.
Oh yeah,
It kind of gives a little bit of humor because I have been on the receiving ends of multiple like really nasty comments, threats, harassment, and
Wow.
I'm still human, right? Like it still hurts. But at the same time, like I've built up this nice little community of people and I know, you know, if you're not, pardon my English, but if you're not pissing anybody off, you're probably not doing anything worthwhile, right? Like you really need to get out there and if you believe in this, then go for it. And if you want a better community, then get your hands dirty. All of these things that I feel like you value are also the same things that I value. And some people present that differently or in a more aggressive way. And, you got to be safe, but also understand that these are all humans and they're
Yeah.
probably going through something you have no idea,
They-
the background. But I feel like you mentioned taxes again. That was one of the questions I wanted to talk about because as somebody who has been at that table and who has looked at the books, there's decisions to be made. Like things are really expensive. I remember learning how much the pool cost us every year, and I couldn't even believe it. And I've never set foot in that pool. I don't like pools. You won't catch me in the water. If you see me in the water, I might be drowning. Like, get me out of there. Like, I'm not a pool person at all. But having that pool in the community, like my friends and their kids go there, like it's a good social spot. But when people realize like that's a cost. The pool doesn't bring in near enough revenue to cover its own expenses, and same with the rink, which is obviously a place that I spend a lot of time. And you're looking at the books and you're just like, "Oh, well, we need a new ice plant, we need this." And where's that money coming from? Like I believe obviously we need to pay our taxes. I think it's important. But then there's also that, well, the taxes in Elgin, should those be the same in Petitcodiac? And should they be the same in Intervale or Parkendale? That tax fairness question, I think, is a really important one to talk about and
Yeah.
a very nuanced one that if you don't have like a basis of understanding, which I don't even have that much of an understanding compared to, someone like you, but how are you going to talk to people about the fact that, okay, you might not live in Petty, but having the pool and the arena there benefit you, or maybe your kids go to the rink. And, how do
Yeah.
you talk about that to people?
No, I thought about that was a big consideration when I was uh, thinking about the tax level. So, for instance, Three Rivers has four different tax rates. So there's a tax rate for Ward 1, which for anyone listening who's not aware where all the wards are, that is essentially south of the former village of Petitcodiac. And Ward 2 has a different tax rate, and it's a little higher than Ward 1's and Ward 3's. Ward 3 actually has two tax rates internal to it. And to the best of my understanding, it's not a big difference, but Elgin Center, which was a title that would have been brought forward from the old LSD times, local service district times. Elgin Center has a different tax rate, which is slightly higher than the rest of Ward 3. And I think it's got to be about a few streetlights. I can't think of anything else that Elgin Center has. Now, we have a fire department in Elgin Center that looks after, the entire ward. And of course, we work closely with the Petitcodiac Fire Department as well. So those tax rates can't be as high as Petitcodiac's, but at the same time, you're right. We do all use the services in Petitcodiac. Maybe not all of us use the services in Petitcodiac, but I mean, when I grew up in Salisbury, I used the Lions Club pool in Salisbury all the time. I loved going to that pool. And was it a money making thing? No, it was a community service. Same thing with the rink. I grew up playing hockey in that rink. And so many people throughout all of Three Rivers use that rink that to me, it's a kind of a shared resource. Now, some of these rural wards don't have a lot of recreation expenses from the municipal government. And at first, I suggested to, for instance, Angela, who runs the Elgin Eco Association, maybe we should transfer, for instance, some of their holdings to the municipality. And she said, I looked into that as well, but we're actually able to gather a lot of grants by being a nonprofit, and it just works out fine. So, back to the tax differences, I think, and also I looked at compared tax rates to pre-municipal reform, and they were all over the place, especially in rural local service districts. They were all over the place. They were artificially low, and the province was really covering a lot of these expenses. Now, will we see taxes increase? I mean, we have seen small increases. I don't think they've been massive. The big thing that's really affecting people when I talk to somebody who's a little upset about taxes is more about the assessment values. So I have to explain that that's not a municipal controlled issue. But then I did a deep dive on assessment values too, just to be better informed on it, and found out that there's a provincial review of the assessment process, which is why we all had our property taxes frozen at the 2025 rates for this year. So that review of assessment rates is coming out soon. It's in the final stages. It's probably not going to be all good news, but tax rates have increased significantly, and it's mostly because of assessed values.
I think a lot of people don't understand too is that if your tax rate isn't going up, like even by a little bit, think of the cost of everything that is going up. Like it's actually costing the municipality a lot of money to
Absolutely.
keep a tax rate exactly the same. So it's that interesting balance of understanding that, a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck. That little bit of a difference, makes a
So
difference.
I'm not going to be a professional politician. I don't plan on doing this for the rest of my life. I'm not aspiring to go in any higher offices. But I will say a lot of people, and I'm not saying anybody in this war or in this community, but some politicians will defer things like tax increases. And it sounds great. We ran a surplus on our budget, and look at this great financial planning I'm doing. But that is not good financial planning. That's a failure to execute your business plan, and also deferring things like tax increases results in crazy issues like massive tax increases coming all at once. It's also deferring infrastructure investment. So here we are deferring expenses for the next generation. I just don't believe in that, because I have 4 children and I don't want to pass on a big mess to them. I want to keep progressing fairly uh, and building the infrastructure that we need.
I feel like that's so refreshing to hear as somebody who does geek out on these things. Like I'm always into polit like I learn a lot, right? Like and there's still so much to learn, but understanding, like here's someone standing in front of me, acclaimed, is saying like we need to think further ahead than, the next election cycle and whether the decision that I'm making is going to make me electable or not, or going to make me popular or not, because sometimes the right decision is not the popular one. Like sometimes you've got all this information in front of you and you're like, well, I'm going to have to make this decision. People aren't going to like it, but I'm looking in advance. So I really appreciate that like you're saying the quiet part out loud.
It's a problem with democracy, really. And, I think Winston Churchill said democracy is the worst form of government except for all others that have been tried. So it's a problem you see a lot at the federal level, where politicians will make decisions because there's an election coming up or because they're in a minority government or whatever reason, but it's political. It has nothing to do with planning. And I've seen it in the military. Poor planning, cuts to defense, for instance, were very common through every prime minister that I've had for the last 40 years since I've joined the military. And cutting defense is like, and then trying to rebuild it later, like we're doing now, is like not putting any oil in your car for 10 years and then just hoping for the best. You're going to damage your car, and it's going to cost you a fortune to fix it instead of continually doing the maintenance you're supposed to do. So I don't think deferring deferring things is the way to go. I mean, we have to be very conscious of what we spend money on, but and I don't think we need to go with anything frivolous. Certainly not in these economic times, but at the same time, there are things that are being planned long term. Three Rivers wisely has land set aside for a water. I'm going to say a treatment plant, but I don't know if that's the right word. But like a municipal water system. And I thought when I read the new zoning bylaws that were put out recently, adopted by Three Rivers, and then looked at the maps, I was like, this is fantastic. This is a long-term thinking about a problem that we don't have right now, but we will eventually. And that's good management.
I remember actually learning about that plan from Jerry Goggin himself when he was talking about, just thinking for the future because we're all on wells. I'm on a well, you're on a well, but the idea of having municipal water, it's like, wow, like that's really appealing. But then you got to look into how expensive that actually is. Like, it's not just putting the infrastructure in, which is obviously a huge upfront cost. It's maintaining it. Like, many times during my time on council, we'd have a sewer pipe that, cracked or we need to replace it. And it is so expensive. And I wanted to make sure I got a plug in. You were talking about democracy. One of my favorite books, Too Dumb for Democracy by David Moscroft. Excellent read. I feel like you'd appreciate it. Should be a read in high school as well. Um, I I wanted to touch on um like we're talking about these like more complicated higher level things. Like the average person is not talking to their neighbor about, the ins and outs of taxes and the cost of like deferring that, right? But how do you feel like in your communication, you can talk to me about like your methods or your like the way you plan on doing it. Like how are you going to communicate this with people in a way that they would understand if they weren't sitting in front of you, someone who totally geeks out on this?
I think I'm a geek too because I love reading minutes. I love reading budgets, and I think that's weird, but the problem with reading minutes, I mean, the minutes of meetings are available on the website, but it does not really help you understand issues to read what the minutes, because minutes are covering decisions. And budgets can be difficult to understand with no context. So what I know is that people don't understand decisions. They won't trust them. So as a military leader, I often told some of my senior staff that work for me to never be yes people, yes men, whatever you want to call them. I want to hear I want honest feedback. If I'm doing something that you think is crazy, let me know. My ego is fine. You can tell me if I'm making a mistake. I'd rather hear it from you, and I'd rather get your ideas than just simply, you know, downloading all my ideas. I only have one little brain with maybe two brain cells in it. But when you get a group together, they can come up with some great ideas. So, but the key to that is you really have to communicate with people, and it's not just part of the job. It's not an add-on. It's like crucial. So we need plain language, consistent updates on issues, and making sure people know how to get a hold of us and that they're actually going to get a response. Like I've mentioned, my Facebook group. It's slow to launch something like that, but I'm getting some good questions and comments on that, which is super important to me because I don't want to be dictating policy from a council seat in the municipal office. I want people locally to have a share in some of these decisions. There's still a lot of confusion related to municipal reform. So when I first started considering running, I thought, well, was municipal reform even a good idea? I wondered at the time if people thought it was a good idea. Like, really, I mentioned before that taxes were actually probably crazy low at under the local service districts. And maybe they like that. Maybe they like the province handling it. But the province Maybe they were doing a good job. I don't know, but they were faceless bureaucrats. There's nobody to, I don't know, poke in the chest. I don't want anybody to poke me, but you know what I mean? Like there's nobody, there's no face to it. I was at a event hosted by the Elgin Senior Center, and I think this topic kind of came up, and and I said the best thing uh, about having a democracy and having a municipal government with actual local people on it is you have somebody to, I guess, say blame, but you also have somebody to talk to at the local level who's actually your neighbor and a person who's living under the exact same conditions as you are, you know, in a rural area with limited services. You know, I just want to give a shout out too about, you know, some of the places that make up this community. People don't even know under municipal reform, you know, what community they are in, like I mentioned before. So we have Church Hill, we have Church's Corner, we have Elgin, we have Ferndale, Forest Hill, Goshen, Gowland Mountain, Harrison Settlement, Hillside, Little River, part of Little River, not all of it, Mapleton, and Meadow, Midland, Parkdale, Pleasantvale. I'm reading these now because they're all alphabetical. It makes it easy. Prosser Brook, Ross's Corner, and Upper Goshen. Like that's a lot of communities. I think just to let those folks know who I am and how they can get a hold of me. And if they have an issue with their roads or an issue with their garbage collection or some other service provided by the municipal government or even provincial government, fire them at me. And if it's not something I can control and bring directly to the council table, I'll advocate for them at the provincial level. Our MLA is very busy. She has a large riding with a lot of communities in it, and I hope to be, you know, a conduit for her office. I've met some of the folks in her office, and they're great and very receptive to input. So communications is key.
I feel like there's this lost art of like long form communication, right? That actual sitting down, having a full conversation for an hour with somebody and really understanding the issue and their stance on it because we live in a world where you've got like a headline, you've got a meme, and that's supposed to say everything that needs to be said. To be critical of that, right? Like we need to get information across fast. I understand that, but there also needs to be like a desire, a hunger from the population to be like, okay, that's part of the story. You've got my interest, but now I need to know more. I need to talk to the people who are responsible in this situation. I need to understand why they're making the decisions, what information's available to them to make those decisions, and what kind of other input that they might be taking. And that's part of the reason why I like doing these interviews because I'm an avid podcast listener. I'll be doing my dishes and I'm listening and I'm learning. And, my mind has been changed on so many things from just listening to two people having a conversation and agreeing with each other and then disagreeing, but recognizing that they're coming from the same place. I feel like that's really important. And I think you've made a really good case for yourself that you actually do care about communication and that people can trust when they come to you with something that not only are you listening, but you're going to do your research and you're going to actually get that information to the person who can, deal with the problem that they're having, whether that's you, whether that's the MLA or even the MP. Like, I feel like people can be confident when they approach you. It sounds like it's one of your values.
I hope so. I mean, I've already made mistakes and I've not even been sworn into office, but you know, like I've made mistakes in communication just during my campaigning, getting a little too, I don't know, emotionally set on issues and not talking to people who were affected. We had some bylaw issues out here, and I think I should have talked to people quicker. So I'm learning lessons still at my almost advanced age here. I'm still learning, and I hope I'll get better at it. And I think face-to-face chats are going to be very helpful. Online is good, but I really, you know, especially when somebody's very upset about something, it's really hard to be. super angry and upset face to face with somebody, especially if the person they're talking to is kind of calm and, non-confrontational. So I think that's a mistake I made. You can write something and the tone will sound so aggressive online, and you realize you've kind of angered somebody, and I didn't really intend to do that. But a face-to-face would have served better in that instance. So I'm learning, and I'm going to try to do that more.
That leads really well into my next question is like, what kind of tone do you hope to set, like with your presence at that table? Like, what I'm hearing is you're a very calm, factual, let's get the big picture kind of guy, but like what is that vibe? What's that tone that you want to put forward if it's different than what I'm seeing right now?
I think you've hit it. I think I'm going to try to be calm, respectful, and fact-based. You're working on a council. People have the councilors have different wards that they support, and they have different priorities, and we all have to work together. That's been the same probably for almost everybody who works in a group. You have to work together for a common good. So I'm going to try not to escalate situations like I just mentioned. By maybe having face-to-face conversations and really learning every perspective to the issue before I leap to conclusions. I really don't want to assume bad intent when I'm working with people. I want to assume that everybody's working towards the same goals, like community goals, and I want to start with understanding. So I learned leadership over decades as a military leader, and as my confidence and skills grew, I became pretty comfortable leading my troops through pretty stressful and chaotic and sometimes very challenging situations. So, whenever time and circumstances permitted, I took the time to seek the advice of staff, and that's going to be it's not a really great analogy, but I'm going to try to do the same thing as a counselor, where I want to learn what the folks out here are really looking for, and then focus on that for them.
I'm thinking too, I mean, looking at like our time or whatever, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of add anything, like maybe a question I didn't ask that you felt like you really wanted to answer, or is there anything we didn't cover today that you feel like you've got this platform, what would you like to say?
First of all, I really want to encourage people to reach out to me. And if you don't have Facebook and you don't want to join my Facebook group, my email address is Andrew_Goggin at iCloud.com. Send me an email, or if you see me on the street, or if you want me to come out to your house and have a chat with you, just do it. Like I said, I'm retired and I have a little bit of time to invest in these things, and I'm willing to do it. So I guess that's my main thing is I really want to establish that two-way communication so I can better serve people here.
So we'll move into my little lightning round here of just fun little questions, see what you got to say, but I would love to hear your favorite local place. This can be a restaurant or a cafe, it can be an outdoor place, it can be an activity. What's your favorite local place?
Well, I'm a real outdoorsy person. So I have a lot of favorite places, but I do hunting and fishing and side by siding and motorcycling and things like that. One of the places that I really love is a little fairly remote corner of our old farm. My family had a farm here in Midland. I can actually look out my window and see it. We're up on a hill and I could see that farm. And my great grandfather bought the last bit of that farm. He ended up having 1,000 acres, but the last little bit of that farm was in a corner of it. And there's an old abandoned uh, buildings there and the remnants, foundations, and things like that. And I love going down there. There's very rarely anybody in there, and it's very peaceful. And I love one of my hobbies is finding old foundations and homesteads in the woods. Like there's an amazing number of old communities that are now abandoned in the area, and I just love going to those places and imagining how hard it was and how much work they had to do. Like our property that we live on has a stone fence that runs about 500 meters up the mountain, uh, which I'm rebuilding slowly but surely. But imagine how much work they had to do. I think that just hanging out in nature and kind of observing and reflecting on the people that came before us is, I guess that's my favorite thing to do.
That's so awesome. I'm learning so much. Like I know I've only had the two of these conversations, but I'm like, that's so cool. Like now we gotta go check that out. Um, that leads in, I guess, to the next one, which is what is like the best hidden gem in your community? You've got someone who's never been in your ward. Like, what are you showing them?
Hidden gems. I mean, our everybody comes up here for our rivers. We have so many people coming up from outside the community, and sometimes they're causing, a little bit of problems up there. But I mean, people love coming up the river. I used to love coming up here when I was a kid. I don't know. I think it's those hidden gems for me. And I don't know if everybody would share this, is those old homesteads. I just love finding those. And I guess that's my hidden gem. I mean, nature's the big thing here. People come here. We have mountain bike trails. Now I'm looking out across the valley at the mountain biking trails that the Elgin Eco Association built. They're amazing. My kids are all in their late 20s, mid to late 20s, and they just love it. If they come up and jump on our mountain bikes and go out there on the trails, it's amazing. There's so many things up here, and a lot of it is nature based, which is perfect for me.
I'm gonna have to bring my little guy. He loves biking and he's been wanting to do trails, and I can't remember last time I've been on a bike. I did sign him up for that Learn to Ride program at the motocross place, so we'll see how he does. But I have a feeling we'll be spending a lot of time on those trails, so I might have to bug you to, show me around.
Anytime.
Perfect. So last question, serious one. Who are you rooting for in Stanley Cup Finals?
Oh, well, okay. So I guess my team would be the Senators because I lived in Ottawa that was my last posting, and we would go to games at the Canadian Tire Center. We lived actually pretty close to it. It's in Canada. So the Sens are out. So the Canadians just won last night against Carolina. Carolina beat, I think Carolina knocked the Senators out actually. So now we have the Canadians. I think that's the only Canadian team left. And actually, I always like the Canadians. I actually wore a Canadians jersey to the TD Center in Boston one time for a hockey game. It was quite a thing, quite an experience to feel that much hate. So I'm
Don't
gonna,
worry, you'll be a politician. You're gonna feel it again in no
yeah,
time. Um, I love that question because like I actually haven't even watched any of the games of the playoffs, but I live in a house of Leafs fans.
oh,
But
okay.
I too am a Senators fan because my birth certificate says Ottawa, even though I was there for about 6 months. Like I didn't spend any time at all. But birth certificate says Ottawa. I'm like, that's a good enough reason to be
Yeah,
a Senators fan. But I feel, yeah, I'm rooting for the Canadian team. And then my husband told me that Montreal Game seven, they won. I'm like, oh, well, I mean, I think they're the only Canadian team. I think you're right.
yeah. They won last night, and yeah, on to the next round.
Awesome. Well, this has been an awesome conversation. I'm really grateful that you've given me, almost an hour of your time for me to get to know you, but to also give you this platform so that everybody else can get to know you. I'll be sure to put like your email or any other like contact information in the post associated with this video to make it nice and easy for people to reach out to you. So, any other final words?
No, I'm going to say, I want to say thank you to Angela and to all of the people on the council, the first council that started in 2023. I analyzed all the minutes and they did a good job. A lot of people don't realize it. They had a bit of a rocky start, like every other municipality did, following municipal reform, but they really, after they got their feet under them, really did great work. And I think they deserve a lot of kudos for that.
Yeah, you want to
And
give credit where credit's due, right?
credit, I mean, now I'm just hoping to be part of the team that builds on that success for the next 3 or 4 years.
Wonderful. Well, I will let you get on with the rest of your day. I will get this posted as soon as I possibly can. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thank you, Terry.